Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Ramona Hammel. We're going to be discussing actually a book that she co-authored and co-wrote with her mother, Donna Gene Stankey. It's called Rate, available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I will say, Ramona was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business, Good River Print and Media Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, move it through Good River. You can find them at goodriverprintandmedia.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Ramona here on the line because she's going to tell us all about the journey that she took, the story that her mother wrote. It's just a feel-good story all around. First and foremost, it's going to be littered with a great education to let you know about really how people lived during the 1800s, in the late 1800s to be exact. But in addition to that, I mean, really what is so unique and so special about this book is that Donna had the wherewithal to know that this was going to be a book, not only education for everybody that picked up the book, but specifically for her family, right? She wrote it for generations to come to have an idea, to have an understanding of the family in which they came from. And I absolutely love that, right? Because we know, listen, guys, not everybody gets to be written about in the textbooks. But just because your story isn't going to get picked up and put in the history textbooks doesn't mean your story is not valid enough to be told. And I love the fact that Donna took it upon herself, with, of course, the help of her daughter Ramona, to comprise all of these stories from her family, put it into a book, and make sure that future generations understood where they came from. So without further ado, let's bring Ramona here on the line because, listen, she's the expert on the matter. She went through the journey with her mother. She's going to be able to articulate all the nuances in the book much better than I ever could. Ramona, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I'm great, Benji. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're very much looking forward to this, Ramona. Now, listen, before we get into the book itself, let's hold off slightly. Give our listening audience a little bit more background information on you and your mother.
Oh, thank you. I myself grew up on a small farm outside of Wayland, Michigan. I was there. It's my father's fourth generation on the farm, and it's just, like I say, a small community there. I went on to college and became a secretary. Didn't like that, and then I got into the dental field. So I've been a dental hygienist now for over 30 years. My love of history, such as my mom's, that's how I got involved in the book too. I'm married to my husband Randy of 20 years, and we just have an excellent life here on the farm. My mom also grew up on a farm, and it was her family farm of, I think, 3 generations that she grew up in. And she grew up in the small community of Elsie, Michigan, which is kind of by St. John's. Anyway, it's just this rural community, but she just had lots of cousins and aunts and uncles that lived in the community. So she was very blessed to have this large family group. She also went on to college. She became a secretary. She worked during the war as a secretary, but then after World War II, her job got eliminated. And then she went on to Michigan State, where she met my dad, and they got married, and then they moved to his family farm of 4 generations, and that's where she resided up until the day she passed away. But she had 8 kids and just loved family life on the farm. She actually then, while she was married and had all of us kids, she actually went back to college, and that's where she got an English degree, and that's where then she was encouraged to write this book.
Wonderful. You come from a huge family. It sounds like a wonderful family, a family full of farmers. That's what I'm gathering. Fantastic, Ramona. Well, listen, let's jump right in. Rate. Tell us about your book.
Well, this book is about my mom's dad's side of the family, the Setteringtons. And what is neat about this book, it draws you back in time. It draws you back 130 years to the 1890s. And here you're going to visit with this farming community outside of Elsie, Michigan. And it's just a close knit community. And there you're going to get to know the Setterington family. The first Setterington that you'll get to know is Horatio Setterington and his wife, Lavina. Now, Horatio is a well-known businessman in the community of Elsie. He buys and sells real estate. He'd actually been a farmer for a while. He sells cattle. He sells horses. He actually even opened his own bank for $8,000. So he, like I said, was a very astute businessman,
Wow.
and he was known as Ray to the community. Now, his wife, Lavina, she was the stern matriarch of the family. Now, together they had 3 kids. Ruby, their daughter, who they adored and could do no wrong. They doted on her and just, like I said, spoiled her. Where the 2 sons that they had, their son John was the rebellious one in the family. He didn't quite do everything his mom and dad wanted him to do. He had a mind of his own. Well, Milford Setterington, he was the dutiful son. He did not cross what his mom and dad said. What they said, he did. So he married Elmina, and then they had 2 children. Now, you must understand, Elmina, she did not want children. But once she had the daughter, her first daughter, Blanche, she was happy that it was a girl, and that wasn't so bad. But Millie, or Milford, really wanted a boy, and because he wanted the family name carried on, he wanted the Setterington name to, go on, and he wanted a boy then to raise on the farm, to become the farmer, to pass the farm on to him. The thing was, Mina did not want a boy, and so when she found out that she had a boy, she thought God was punishing her for not wanting children. She knew she was never going to love this boy. She just was adamant about, I don't want him, but I know as a good Christian woman, I will do what I have to do to raise this boy. Now, their daughter Blanche also did not want a boy. She did not want a little brother. She wanted a sister. So when she came home the night that her brother was born and found out that she had a brother, she is like, send him back. I don't want him. And they explained to her that, no, they couldn't do that. And she goes, I don't care, then feed him to the pigs. So the thing was, too, then Mina, she, because she had wanted a girl so badly, she dressed my grandpa, Ralph, in dresses until he was 3 years old, until finally Millie said, enough. But the thing is there's just fun little stories about them being on the farm as they grew older. There was a time like the hog got out and they had to chase the hog to get it back in, and it tells how he and his mother are chasing the hog. Or there's the time that a cow got its head stuck in a bucket and then knocked over the outhouse with someone inside. There was a time that Ralph decided he wanted to buy a dog. He wanted this dog, and his dad's like, well, if you want it, even though he's a young boy, he's like, you have to earn the money to get it. So what they did is Ralph picked strawberries for a penny a quart until he got enough money to buy this dog. And then just other little stories like here, you're going around the farm and it's fun, and here's this nice pile of hay. So Ralph thinks he's going to jump into the hay pile because it's just fun to do, only to find out it wasn't as fun as he thought because there was a pitchfork in the hay, and the tine of the fork ended up going through his foot. So just things like that, living on the farm, just the challenges, the hardships of daily living, like Mina having to cook on a wood stove 3 meals a day all year long, hot, cold, whatever, and the chores that the children had to do to help, like hauling wood on the sled in the winter to bring in firewood. One of the fun stories I like is back then, they didn't get all the toys like that we do now. These kids, for their birthday, Blanche liked oranges, so that's what she wanted for her birthday. So her dad got her this huge bag of oranges. And then Ralph thought, well, gee, if Dad would do that for her, maybe he would get bananas for him because that's what he liked. So he got bananas for his birthday, too. But as it goes on, like I say, just other cute little stories of what life was back out in the country on the farm.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Ramona. Listen, I'm curious. I know that these are collections of stories from your family's history, but this is a fictional narrative, correct? So, roughly how much of these stories are directly taken from your family's history?
Pretty much all these stories are, but I guess it would be the conversations that my mom had to come up with.
Right.
And she did then have to add other tidbits about neighbors or whatever. But like I said, there was a lot of this where she was just able to take notes and write down actual events that did happen.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Ramona, next question I'd love to get into. Let's discuss the title. Now, from your description, and right off the very first family member that you brought up was a family member by the name of Horatio. Now,
Correct.
I believe you mentioned that his nickname was Rate. So I don't know if that has any connection to the title of the narrative, but articulate to our listening audience, where did that title come from, and why did you and your mother choose that to be the representation for the book?
Well, what it is, Horatio Centerington, like I said, was known as Rate, and that would be my great-great-grandpa. And then, of course, he had the son, Milford Horatio Centerington, and then Milford called his son Ralph Horatio Centerington. So they're passing on the Horatio name from boy to boy. And so what happened was, the night that my grandpa Ralph was born, Milford says, to honor his dad, he'd already honored him by using Horatio as Ralph's middle name, but he said to honor his dad, he would call the boy Rate, like his dad was called. And so my mom decided that that's what she would call the book then, after her grandpa and then after her dad.
Wonderful. Makes perfect sense. Guys, again, here on the line with Ramona Hammel, we're discussing her mother's book that she co-partnered with Donna Gene Stankey called Rate. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And Ramona, next concept that I'd love to get into, let's discuss inspiration. Now, of course, inspiration, as you know, can take many forms, so it'll be a multi-part question. Now, let's start with really the basic one. What inspired your mother and you to really partner up on this journey and write this book?
For my mom, it was just her love of growing up on the farm. She had such a wonderful childhood, and she loved all these stories that she heard from her grandparents and great-grandparents. And so she wanted to just pass that on to her children and to other generations. She loved the stories, and because she had gone back to school once she had married my dad and had all of her children, she went back to college and had an English minor. She decided that she liked writing, and her professor from, actually, this was Western Michigan University, they had told her that they said, that's probably a good idea to pursue that. And then my mom was also a substitute teacher at the school I went to, so one of the librarians at our school also inspired my mom to write this story.
Now, my curiosity is, your mother is the one that started on this journey, and of course, from the spurring on of other individuals around her. Where did you come into the mix? Because I know you also helped your mother on this journey as well. How did you enter in on this project?
Well, what had happened is my mom wrote this story back in like 1970, and then she tried to get the book published, but at that time she couldn't get it published, and so I had come upon the rejection letters that my mom had, because what had happened is my mom, because of her age, she lost her eyesight to macular degeneration. She couldn't hear very well, and she was in a wheelchair, so she didn't have the means to try to get the book published again. But so I thought I could help her, because this would be a way to honor her to get this book published that she had tried to get published 40 years ago. So thanks to Christian Faith Publishing, they said that they would publish this book. So I was then the one who did all the contact with Christian Faith Publishing and did the editing of the book, and then came up with the cover and that part of it, because my mom was unable to do that.
And what type of research did you guys do in preparation for this book?
Oh my gosh, my mom did hours of research. Anytime we went to a family member's house, cousins or aunts and uncles, my grandpa's house, my mom always took a notepad with her and an ink pen, because she would ask them questions, and then she would, because she had learned shorthand, she would take shorthand so she could get it verbatim what they had said. And it was just fun. And we, as kids, would always sit back and we'd listen to these stories, and we just found it very interesting too. So we were just very glad that my mom did that. And then the thing was, she also would go to like the library and then get the facts about like the merchants, to make sure she had the merchants' names right or the streets right in the town. Or just like when President McKinley, when he became president, because that's in the book, there's a little story about that, my grandpa, or like the Spanish-American War. So she wanted to make sure she had historical facts correct too. So it was quite a few hours of research to get this book going.
Wow. Ramona, as we start to tie up this wonderful interview, first and foremost, thank you so much for all the information that you've been able to relay thus far. Curiosity for my own sake, what would you say was a highlight, either for your mother in writing this book or you in partnering up with her in this journey?
I think for my mom, the highlight was that this was just a labor of love that she had completed, and she loved it when she was able to hand each one of her kids a copy of the manuscript that she had written, and to see the looks on our face about, oh my gosh, thank you for doing this for us, Mother. And for myself, I think it was when I was able to hand her the finished product, the book, for her 94th birthday, and say, Mom, I know this was your dream to become a published author, and here you are, a published author.
That is wonderful. That is such a huge thing. As you stated, this was something that she was working on for 30 plus years. And the fact that you were able to then provide that for her was such an amazing gift. Now, Ramona, we know about the book, and we know the importance that this book has, and really how much it represents your family, and what a great gift it was for your mother to get it published, and what a great gift it is for your entire family to continue to understand where they come from. Now, what are you hoping to see people do with this book?
That's a good question. I think I would like people to realize that this book, yes, means a lot to me and my family, but it's just really good for them too. It's because it's just a fun book of history and what it was like to live in the late 1800s. It's that piece of Americana that anybody who's interested in that, they can just really dive into this book and be excited about it. And that how we are blessed that my mom took this time to preserve this bit of history, not just for our generation now, but for future generations. And that she was able to give everyone just that small window to see what rural farm life was back then, because it's so different from what it is today. Mm-hmm. And that these people really were kind of the heart and soul of America, because without farmers back then, people in the city wouldn't have had the food they had. Absolutely. And when you think about it, it was like horse and buggy time, and all these farmers provided for the horses that were in the cities. And so I really would like people to just appreciate what that culture was like at that time.
Absolutely. There you have it. Guys, listen, what more can be said? This is such a fantastic journey that we're able to take along with all of these family members in Ramona's history. But, what I love so much about it is, of course, just on the surface, the education is amazing. As you stated, for everyone, whether you're connected to this family or not, to learn about early civilization and what they had to go through and how they were able to live their day-to-day lives and how vastly different it is today. I think the education is, of course, incredible. But really, another thing that it really sparked for me just listening to you talk, in addition to that, it gives me the curiosity for me to even go back in my family tree and learn about my early family members when they came to this country and how they were able to live. And that is such a great thing that it really sparks that interest within me. So guys, listen, you know what you got to do. Let's start with her family, but then continue it on with yours. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, pick up your copy of Rate by Donna Gene Stankey. You surely will not be disappointed. Ramona, this has been an absolute pleasure. Your mother, I'm sure, is so proud of you. She's looking down on everything that you've been able to help her out with and really push her dreams forward. It has been an honor to have you as a guest today on People of Distinction.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, Benji. Thank you.